Hello, I'm Jean-Marie St. Paul. I manage Siemens Digital Industries software in France. I've been in charge of this company for 4 years now. The main theme of today's discussion is really how we can work together to digitalize the French industry, whether mid-sized companies or small. It's true that industry in general, and in France particularly, is undergoing a major transformation. If we take a brief look at all the challenges they face, such as, of course, and has always been the case, the idea of continuous improvement in terms of efficiency, and also from a productivity point of view, that's something that's always existed, but that no company can afford to forget today. Beyond that, there's another matter of concern for all business owners. This is the notion of sustainability. A business has to be productive, efficient, and effective at the same time, but also sustainable. And this obviously adds further constraints to the way to address today's business and also tomorrow's. Another important point, which has also always existed, is the innovation. There's a lot of talk about reindustrializing France's economic fabric. And I'd say to be competitive, of course, we need to work on productivity. I was talking about earlier, but innovating and bringing out value-added products that are innovative in relation to the foreign competition. Unfortunately, the list doesn't end there. The other challenges we face is the availability of manpower. We sometimes talk about the fact that the French population, as in other countries, is an aging population. And even if it means that for some people, retiring and enjoying the very best of life, the results of their labors, it also means that a certain expertise is now lost as these people leave for the second half of their lives. And the question is, how do we go about that? How can we, with expertise that must be passed from one generation to the next, continue to innovate, continue to develop, specifically the French industry? The final element is resilience. Today's market is extremely volatile, and we could see that there are really strong phenomena that could have an impact on the company's business, whether, once again, a small company or even a large company. I'm thinking, of course, of wars that aren't far from our borders today. And I'm also thinking about events like COVID a few years ago. These are elements that are bound to disrupt the business, that will push it to be more agile, and to be able to react quickly to changes in order to adapt in line with market changes. The idea and the key word, as usual, is this notion of agility, and that's a real strength for mid-sized companies and small businesses. It's that ability to be agile and react quickly. But very often, agility in itself is not enough. This agility must translate into both the men and women who make this company what it is, the ability to be in a constant state of readiness to adopt new approaches. And this must also be reflected in the tools used by the company. And that's where digitalization, which we'll be talking about later, is a tool, is an approach extremely important to be able to accompany the company's agility and enable it to respond to the challenges we were talking about earlier. And that's where the couple, Janus Engineering and Siemens, are a winning combination. Siemens is a company of a certain size, and we have developed a software portfolio for many years now, which has enabled industrial companies in particular to go digital from start to finish. Our starting point is engineering to manufacturing. In addition, we have partners like Janus Engineering who will be able to support our customers closer in all the regions of France to support this transformation. What you need to understand is that digitalization means the idea of using computerized tools to improve this productivity we were talking about earlier, and at the same time work on elements such as innovation and also the ecological footprints. And to carry out this transformation, a kind of continuous evolution, not a revolution, it's a continuous evolution of the company. We're going to adopt solutions and technologies on a step-by-step basis to gradually transform the industrial base. This evolution will require both strong technological solutions with the Siemens portfolio, and at the same time a local support. And that's exactly what working together allows us to do between Siemens and Janus Engineering, which is this idea of saying, we take technological solutions and bring them closer to the men and women who will accompany this change and make it happen. And there we have all the strength of a group like Siemens, and at the same time, the ability of the proximity and expertise of a company like Janus Engineering, which will support its customers as closely as possible in this evolution of the industrial tool, and this evolution also of the teams, because we often talk about tools, but behind the tools are the men and women who are really going to be the true players in these transformations. From an operational point of view between these two companies, our two companies have known each other for some time. For over 20 years now, Janus Engineering and Siemens have been working together, and in fact, it soon became clear that there was a real complementarity. As I was saying earlier, the Siemens Group, which has been around for some time as well, 175 years, which we celebrated not so long ago. It's true that we have real international coverage and an extremely large software portfolio that we've developed over the past 15 years. But it's important to understand that a transformation, when you're the CEO of an SME or a company of intermediate size, this transformation is all about trust. In other words, I'm not going to hand over my industrial facilities. I'm not going to entrust the transformation of my company to someone I don't trust. And I think we can be completely confident in Siemens Technologies and all the know-how we've been able to put into our solutions. But I think there's a real complementarity with proximity. And that's precisely what Janus Engineering brings to this couple. In other words, we have the firepower to develop solutions. We now have 22,000 employees who have been developing the software for all these years. So we've really got the know-how. But then we have to pass on this know-how to the end customer and be able to support them in everyday life. And this day-to-day support ultimately is perhaps the most important. Because when the technician is in front of their machine or computer, sometimes they need a helping hand to change the method, to change the approach, or to go further. And this going further will be done with both the software solution, but also with the engineer or the Janus Engineering technician that they will have to help them to learn a new practice and push the cursor further. It's true that when we talk about French industry at the moment, we hear this need for reindustrialization. We also hear about the dynamism of French industry at the moment, particularly through startups. There are a lot of things going on in France right now, and that's great news. This is good news, of course, for the global business, but it's also a source of pride, I think, for the French industrial community. If there's perhaps an example, it's an example of a real collaboration between Siemens and, of course, Janus Engineering, closer to the customer. It's a company called Latitude, which is located in Reims, France. Latitude works in the space sector. So the space field is a very important one. It's very interesting because it's obviously an eminent technology. France has a long history in the space industry, with companies such as Ariane Group and its famous internationally renowned launcher, and one of the world's leading players in satellite and rocket launches. But there's also a growing number of small players who take the plunge. And this is the case for Latitude, based in Reims. It's a company that's decided to go into the business of micro-launchers, or small rockets. So these are still rockets of a certain size, rockets between 12 and 15 meters high, in which will launch small satellites called either micro or nano satellites. So to give you an idea about the size of a shoebox, which they will launch themselves into space with extreme agility. The idea is to say, in addition to these big launchers that exist today and are being developed by Ariane Group, there are smaller launchers that will make it possible to send these small satellites, which are used more and for many purposes, that be it in agriculture, be it by the authorities, be it for regional planning issues, etc. The concept of small satellites, microsatellites, and nanosatellites is increasingly developed, and they did just that. They've been working for some time now with Janus Engineering, with software solutions from Siemens, to support this startup in the development of their products. And that's what's really interesting, is that it's a real guidance to the day-to-day and end-to-end, that this either the engineering part, the design, or the entire system. These are very complex systems, involving both the fuselage of the rocket, there's also the engine, and we know just how much in the space sector, development of the engine is extremely important. They have developed a special engine based mainly on additive manufacturing technologies, meaning they printed the engine, which is something quite unique. So there's a whole host of technologies inside such a rocket, even if it's not very big. And then Janus Engineering will not only accompany them on the design, but also through to the rocket manufacturing and piloting machine tools that will really make it possible to machine parts. So it's really end-to-end support, not only by Janus Engineering engineers, but also Siemens through its software solutions to be found at every stage of the process, that will enable the engineers and technicians to have tools that will enable them to have a real digital continuity from one stage to the next, a traceability and a real ability to be in control of both its product and its industrial facilities. Today, one term that's extremely important is the term ecosystems. It's this idea of saying, and whether we're in the field of startups or of companies in general, regardless of size, to win, you really need to be able to collaborate and work together. And that's what this partnership illustrates. Between these three companies, which are three Siemens partners, Janus, Phalanx, and Cygneo, these are companies that have decided to work together with Siemens to be able to provide end-to-end solutions and expertise, end-to-end with customers. This goes back to your earlier question. But why does Siemens, the great Siemens, need Janus, which is a company perhaps a little smaller? This is precisely the notion of ecosystem. It means recognizing the fact that we can't solve every problem on our own. And just as our customers surround themselves with partners around them to be able to address their own industrial challenges, it's very important that we, in the same way, join forces to accompany these customers. This example shows that innovation and continuous improvement through digital, it's all about the ecosystem, and that Siemens' mission or goal is to gather around us an entire ecosystem of experts, like Janus Engineering, to be able to address the customer's needs.
Let's make it real. Janus Engineering.